Hi everyone, Ali here. Nothing like an HR presentation on a Monday morning, or at least it's noontime. So let's jump into it. We're going to talk about dental team management tips and some of the strategies around this that everyone can use to kind of be not only compliant but to get the most out of their team moving forward. So as many of you know, I am a healthcare attorney, work with a lot of dentists across the country regarding practice transitions, partnerships, lease negotiations, the purchase and sale of their practices. Of course, we do a lot of HR compliance on how to hire and fire employees, how to do associate contracts and things of that nature, and then, of course, estate planning as well. And today, of course, we're going to be talking about HR. And so one of the things I always hear is, Ali, I'm so tired. Of course, you're tired. We're all tired, whether you're a doctor owner listening today or you're an office manager or an office administrator. I get it. We are all super, super tired of everything that is going on in terms of HR and employee compliance, because that is unfortunately the state of affairs right now. And leading a team, it's not easy, right? It's not easy at all. But more importantly, it's about setting up the team in a way that allows them to succeed. That is probably even more difficult, because we all know that if management excels and the company is set up properly, and there's compliance tools that are in place, there's management tools that are in place, that the whole practice will do incredibly well if things are passed down. But the secret sauce, right? The secret sauce to having an incredible practice in today's post-COVID type world is this concept that we've talked about for years and years, which is that if you take care of the employees, right, then the employees will take care of the patients, which will inevitably end up taking care of the profits themselves. And this is not a new concept. It's not it's not something that is original to me. It's something that is very, very proven, that if you take care of the employees, they will take care of the patients, the customers, and then eventually the patients and customers will take care of the profits, of course. That all makes sense. But the question is, what does it mean to take care of the employees, right? What does that mean? And how do we actually get that done? And this is where the goal of today's seminar becomes really, really important, because there's not just one magic bullet that defines how we take care of our employees. Some people might think, taking care of an employee means paying them more. Well, we know that's not always the case. In fact, it's rarely the reason why employees are not happy is because they're earning a little bit less or a little bit more. It's not usually about compensation. It's usually about other things that we're going to talk about today. But my goal for today with you, if you're listening, again, whether you're an office manager, office administrator, or if you're the owner listening in, the real key right today is to create momentum, right? To create momentum for you. And what do I mean by that? Well, if there's a big boulder and you are pushing this boulder, it is easier to continue pushing it when it's already in motion, right? When there's momentum. It's a lot harder to move this boulder when it's sitting in its place and hasn't moved for years and years and years. And that's my goal, is to help you create this momentum so that we can get the ball rolling. Because once you get the ball rolling, then things tend to happen. Good things tend to happen when you're doing things the right way. And so we're going to get into all of this. Today we're going to talk about a lot of things that are really great first steps to getting this process started. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about hiring and some management strategies. We're going to talk about team ownership. We're going to talk about communication, some long-term strategies, of course. And then if we have time at the end, we're going to have a Q&A. So feel free, even as we go through, as if you have questions, go ahead and put it in the chat box, and at the end, I'll try to get to them. If not, we run out of time for some reason, then we'll follow up with you individually with an email response. But I've left enough time, hopefully, for questions. So let's jump into it. How do we implement employee hiring and management strategies? Now, I'm going to say something that I'm going to let sink in for a little bit, because it is something that you have to think about, because we have talked to thousands and thousands of employees, and what we have come to realize from their responses is that employees today expect the same interaction and experience from their employer as they get as a consumer in the marketplace. So think about that for a second. They expect the same experience they get as a consumer from their employer. Right? If you think about Amazon and you think about Prime memberships, you go on their website, you have access to basically purchase anything you want at your fingertips. You get to know, where your delivery is, when it's going to arrive, if it's late, how you return it. That's a seamless interaction. It's a seamless interaction. It's a low stress interaction, in the sense that they can get on there at any point, buy anything they want, right? And it'll be there in a couple of days. And if they don't like it for some reason, they get to return it with a couple of clicks. And that is all, and it's packed with information, right? It's packed with information. And so that's what they expect from their employers, right? That's what they expect from their job. They're expecting that same sort of interaction, interface, and relationship. And that's really important for you to know, because that is the difference sometimes between employees really being excited about their job or whatnot, and then some not. So how do we get that? How do we give them that experience that they get as a consumer from their job, right? Because it is very different, right? A consumer interaction, it can be different, but how do we do it? And it is very doable, right? It is very doable. So the first thing is to treat our employees like they're a new customer, like a new patient. And so what do I mean by that? Many of you in your offices, when a new patient comes in, the front desk may stand up, introduce themselves, walk the new patient around the office, right? Take them to the lab and show them, the lights, and and maybe there's a CAD CAM machine there, and if they have new chairs, they'll show them the new chairs, and they'll be like, here's our $100,000 ADEC operatory, and they may not say the number, but they know that they'll show that off, and they'll show the cabinetry, and red means dirty or stop, and green means clean. They'll do all of that stuff. But when we hire a new employee, we're so excited that the employee just even showed up for the job that we forget, right? We forget to do some of these things, right? We forget to do some of these things. So it's really amazing. It would be really great to show the same respect and hospitality with the new employees as we do with our customers and our patients that are walking through the door. So I think that is very, very important. And then being respectful of their first day and their time. And what I mean by that is, a lot of times, making sure that, their new hire paperwork is ready. Maybe when they start, that first morning, you leave a couple hours, for the introductions and the showing around of the office, but also time for them to sit down and do the paperwork, right? If they're doing it electronically, like on HR for Health, which obviously we recommend, that they sit down behind a computer and they're filling out the paperwork. They've got their, their passport, their license, their, social security cards. They have it all ready, and that would be a pretty awesome experience for for a new hire, or even someone who is looking to be hired as a candidate, right? So absolutely, I think that is a huge part of it. A lot of times candidates say, the doctor didn't even show up on time for the interview, or the office manager was late, or this or that. And so those really make a difference, as part of the hiring process. The other thing is using social media for reaching out and potentially engaging with candidates. There are incredible candidates that work for huge groups around the country, the largest, DSOs and groups, and sometimes they're really happy and sometimes they're not, but they're looking to potentially change and want to be, go to a different environment. Or maybe they are working for a small office and they're looking to go to a bigger group. And so reaching out to some of these folks on social media, I think is huge. You can share your job postings with them. You can communicate with them. More importantly, through social media, if you've done a good job showcasing your company culture with regular updates about the fun things you do, not just patient stuff, but or dental stuff, but you're also showing them about the personality of the office and whatnot. Those can definitely help, right? Definitely help. The thing that I think a lot of people forget about is the job descriptions, right? The job descriptions, although not fun to put together, and if any of you, by the way, need job descriptions, just reach out to the team at HR for Health and we'll help you get some. We've got job descriptions for every single position in an office, and so we can start you off on the right foot. But I think that is a really, really good place to start, because when you have a really good job description, the employee that you're looking to hire, the prospective employee or the employee you have just hired, right? What will they do? They'll know exactly what their position is. Again, right? They'll know, if we're going to use the analogy of the Amazon purchasing that I was just making a minute ago, they know what they're buying on Amazon, right? They have a full description of the product, the size, the color, all of the things that they need. They want the same thing as a employee, and I think that that is really truly what they crave, because not only is it a job title, but it's also a summary that hopefully you can make captivating and personal to you. It outlines the responsibilities of the role, the required skills, the cultural fit. If there's any required, licensure that may be needed, they'll talk about that. So all of these things will be really, really important as part of that process. Now, from a semantical perspective, you should absolutely use online platforms like Indeed to actively search for employees, because there's always going to be people out there. Now, a lot of people say, Ali, I've done that. I'm tired of doing it. It's hard. It is, and historically, it hasn't been easy. Pre-COVID, it wasn't easy, and then COVID made things even worse. But I can tell you statistically, what we are seeing is that it's becoming a little bit easier to hire really good employees. Now, if you're looking for a hygienist, it's still very tough to find a hygienist. If you're looking, for a rock star office manager, still pretty difficult. But if you're looking for a DA, an RDA, front office, insurance coordinators, we are seeing more and more of them entering back into the workforce, or kind of coming back. If they left dentistry and are now coming back, they're looking to kind of get back. And so we are seeing a little bit of easiness on that, which is really, really good, right? Which is really good. If you have past candidates that maybe you liked but maybe chose to work somewhere else, get in touch with them. The grass may not be greener for them, wherever they went. So they may want to come back and work with you. And of course, involving your team in the interview process is huge. We highly recommend working interviews because we think they're wonderful ways of really figuring out if the employees are or the prospective employees actually have the skills to work in your office as they claim in their resumes. And if you involve your team as part of that working interview, if they take them out to lunch and things of that nature, it can be really an incredible experience. And so what we usually recommend for working interviews is have them come mid-morning, 9:30, 10, have them leave mid-afternoon, 2, 2:30, 3 o'clock, and then make sure they know how much they're being paid for those hours. Just give them a number like, hey, $20 an hour or whatever it might be, whatever the job pays. And then have them come, spend time with you, of course. Maybe the team can take them to lunch. They can learn a little bit more about them, and then you can kind of go from there. But what is the most effective hiring tool? Well, the most effective hiring tool out there, the most, is your current employees. It's your current employees. And what I mean by that is that if your employees love working for you, right? They love working for you. They love the challenges and whatnot. Then they are going to be the ones who are going to talk to their friends, because everyone has other friends in the industry that work for other offices, and so it's really important to make sure the team knows that you're hiring. Hey, we're looking for a front receptionist. We're looking for someone in the back, and things of that nature. Don't assume that they know, even though you might talk about it. Make sure they know, right? Make sure they know, and have them talk to their friends. Some of our offices have been giving bonuses to team members, like, hey, if you find a really good, person to join our team and they stay with us for 90 days, you're going to get $1,000 or $500 or whatever it is. Much cheaper to pay them than it is to pay a recruiter whom you can't even, say the 90-day rule, that you have to pay them almost immediately, and the employee could still leave, right? So make sure that you're talking to you're talking to your team members about that, because it is a huge tool that a lot of offices don't use. Now, of course, right, they have to want to refer their friends, and we're going to talk about what that means and how to get them to want to introduce their friends to your office. But the reality is that if you're doing all the right things, they absolutely will. So part of that is having a compliant hiring process, right? That's compliant with all the laws. Now, as most of depending on where you are in the country, there's anywhere from 12 to 20 some documents that you need for every single employee. These are really vital documents. And a lot of people say to me, hey, Ali, this is just to protect the doctor, right? And it's like, no, it does protect the practice for sure, but it's also for the protection of the employees. And the employees know that, right? I just came back from a conference just a couple of days ago, and it was a huge conference. It was 3 days long, and one of my seminars on HR was totally sold out. There was, like, I don't know, maybe 120 people in there, and they were all office managers, administrators, and owners and their spouses. And one of the things that we kept hearing over and over again is, my employees absolutely want to know what kind of benefits they get, what the terms of their hiring is, do they get health insurance, what happens if they have a problem in the office with an employee. They want to know this stuff because it only helps them. So that's why these 12 to 20 some documents that are needed are so important. Now, here's a list of some of them for you. Obviously, you want to get an updated employment application because some rules have changed. A W-4 that you probably are already getting from your payroll company, which is great. Some states have their state version of that, but just kind of keep that in mind. The immigration document is next. Make sure that gets filled out correctly, because it's a felony in many states to hire an illegal immigrant, and so not having a properly filled out I-9 could be a problem. Now, that document has changed in November of last year, so basically anybody you've hired since November needs the new I-9, which they've made a little bit more simple, which is good. The sexual harassment information sheet is next on the list there. Now we've sort of, as a country, forgotten about the Me Too movement that was so rampant, pre-COVID, and so COVID kind of, obviously took the headlines, but sexual harassment is still an issue in our country in many industries, and healthcare and dentistry is definitely not an exception. And so it's important to have this sexual harassment information sheet available for the employees to sign. And so don't forget about that. It does need to be its own standalone document. The at-will acknowledgement, again, your state is at will. You can hire and fire them at any point. They can quit at any point. These are some of the most important documents for you to have. Now, why are they important? Well, they're important because compliance, right? When you are compliant with the rules and you give them an employment manual, you give them all these forms that we were just talking about, plus many more, right? Those were just a handful of the many that are required. It shows the team that you care, right? It shows the team that you care. And that is a huge part of this, right? That's a huge part of this. Because again, remember, it's about showing them that they matter, that you care about their job, about their position, about their benefits. If you didn't care at all, right, or if they feel like you don't care at all, you just want them to show up and work, but you don't care about telling them about their benefits or how much they get or things of that nature, then it starts to tear at that fabric. It's the little things that matter the most to employees, right? It's the little things that matter the most to employees. And so just keep this in mind as you're thinking of hiring process, you're thinking about how to manage it, you're thinking about compliance. It's the little things that they care about, because they can tell when someone is doesn't care about their employees, doesn't care about their job, because none of this stuff is actually happening. Okay. All right. Next, let's talk about team ownership. So a lot of times, you hear these pundits and these consultants say, create a team environment where the employees feel like they're empowered, like they have ownership in their roles. Well, that sounds great. And yes, we want everyone to feel like they have ownership in the practice. We want them to have, feel like they have ownership in their roles. They're invested in that position. They care. But how do we actually do it, right? How do we do it? We know that if they are, the practice is going to thrive. But how do we do it? And I think we need to take a step back when we are talking about this and really think about what is the motivation of, well, what is your motivation? What is the motivation of the doctor? What is the motivation of the office manager? What I mean by that is that we know, right? We know that there are going to be motivations that maybe are not aligned necessarily with the employees. But if you are motivated by only doing things that are best for you, then there's going to be potential issues. Or are you motivated by doing things that are for the betterment of the team, right? For the betterment of the team. That motivation will translate into actions, right? Will translate into actions that will make a difference in terms of whether or not the team feels like they're an owner or not. And this adding value to the employees is a really crucial part about this, because what we know, right? What we know is that there's empowering team members is easy to say, but a lot harder to do. So how do we do it, right? So one is you got to demonstrate trust in their abilities to get significant things done in the office. So you have to, as Ronald Reagan said, you have to trust but verify, right? So you have to trust that they're doing it well, but then you verify to make sure that it actually is being done well. So I think that is huge. Then you acknowledge the skills and training that they have. You encourage them to build on that training by maybe taking more courses or classes and things of that nature, and applying that knowledge in their workplace, right? And that is a big part, because it does take some risk. It takes some risk from you, and it also, takes risk, for the employee to feel comfortable enough to do it. But adding that to some constructive, feedback and opportunities for professional development only enhances the trust of the team's capabilities in doing really significant tasks, right? Really significant tasks. The other thing is allowing team members the freedom to make decisions regarding their work, fostering a sense of responsibility, ownership that they may not get. If they have to come to you for every little decision that they have to make, well, that doesn't create that sense of autonomy. But you go, Ali, yeah, but I want to make every last decision because I don't want them to buy something that they shouldn't be buying, or spending money here or spending money there. I get that, but that comes down to education, right? Ensuring that the team is feeling supported in their decisions, and if the outcome is different, then you have a conversation and an adjustment. The reality is, if someone purchases something they shouldn't have purchased, it's not going to bring down your business. It might have cost you more, but that's a learning opportunity that you can teach them on how to do things the right way, right? So motivating the team to bring new ideas and solutions, showing that their input is valued, giving them that autonomy. All of these things are super, super valuable that we rarely do. We rarely do as business owners, because doctors, office managers, office administrators, like lawyers, I'm putting myself in the same boat. we're type A. We like control and we want things to operate smoothly. But believe me, things can operate a lot more smoothly if you are out of the way. You trust the team to do what they're doing. Now, that doesn't mean that the team is going to do great from day one. There may be some bumps in the road, and that's okay, right? That's okay. That's part of the learning part of it. And that's where the setting clear, consistent expectations regarding those roles, those responsibilities, and the quality of work that you expect helps them, right? Because in my experience working with tens of thousands of employees in our doctor's offices nationwide, what I've realized is that most team members, especially in healthcare, are trying really hard, right? Are trying really hard. They want to do good. They want to, do well for the patients and for their doctor and for their own career. But sometimes they don't have the training or the education in that specific thing to do well. And so what's important is to take that time and teach them, and then implementing performance reviews, whether it's during the first 90 days or what I call micro reviews, which are reviews that you're doing throughout the day, throughout the weeks. They're not big formal things, hey, come into my office, we're going to sit down and talk. No. It's like, hey, I saw you did this, let me show you how to do this a little bit better. Let's try this next time. Those kinds of conversations that just allow for people to feel like they're improving on a day-to-day basis. And with all of that said, what you want to do is you want to set really high standards, if that's what your standards are, and make sure that that is communicated to the employees, and then help the employees meet that standard, right? Meet that standard. And if somebody is not willing to meet it and you've tried and tried, then sometimes maybe they're the right employee, but the wrong job, right? Maybe they need to change jobs within your practice, or maybe you change jobs, and leave the practice. But at least you know that based on what you've done, right? Based on what you've done. All right, let's kind of move to number 3, which is how to use powerful communication techniques that help and empower the team. So effective communication, I don't think anybody can deny, is probably the most vital and crucial aspect of not just in dental practices, but really in all businesses and everything that we do in the world, right? As good leaders typically communicate really well, and that gives them a really good advantage over other people. But the question, I think, is do they take advantage of people, right? We know that good leaders communicate well. We know that gives them an advantage over people. We get that, right? Good leaders, that's one of the things. Steve Jobs, an incredible leader, incredible communicator, right? Leaders of countries, for good or bad, right? You've got, whatever you think from a political perspective, good communicators typically end up, being able to take advantage, or that gives them an advantage over people. But the question is, are you using that to take advantage of those people? And if you are, as a leader, then that could be a serious problem, right? That could be a serious problem, because that is where a lot of the problems arise, is when employees feel like you are taking advantage of them as opposed to helping them. And so what's really important is that, in your daily communications with patients and team members, there may be sensitive communications that happen. Well, it's important, as the office owner, the manager, the administrator, that you communicate sensitive information very carefully. It's really important that, when there's risks, that you're mitigating those risks and showing them by way of example how to communicate in those scenarios, and that absolutely can impact the way they communicate, because positive communication, is very different, of course, than when someone feels like they're being taken advantage of and there's a lot of negative communication being thrown at them. And so again, important to work on that and then model those with the employees so that they can really thrive. Because what we know is that when there's really clear communication, the treatment outcomes for patients are better. Is it because communication leads to better dentistry? Not necessarily, but what it does is the patient feels better, right? They don't feel like they don't feel stressed. They don't feel like maybe that pain that maybe they felt means something is wrong, or maybe they're willing to deal with something that maybe they wouldn't deal otherwise, or maybe their reaction to a pokey wire or maybe a crown that just fell off ends up being slightly different than if you hadn't communicated well. And of course, within the office, effective communication reduces the errors and increases employee retention, because who likes to work in an office where they feel constantly under threat? Zero. No one. Absolutely no one would feel comfortable in that. And that's when errors happen. I hear this all the time, not just from employees, but also from doctors, associates who, say, I made this mistake because I feel like I'm under so much pressure that I can't do anything wrong. And that extra pressure caused me to you know, I don't know, whatever it might be, taking out the wrong tooth, or, not doing what I would typically do as a good clinician. And that is the problem, right? And that impacts doctors, it impacts, staff members, whether it's front staff or the clinical team. All of this is impactful. Poor communication is a root of a lot of negative things, including reviews, formal complaints, and whatnot. So just kind of keep that in mind. Now, how do you manage this? Well, exploring negative emotions, how those lead to communication breakdowns and dissatisfaction. I think that's the first step, is really kind of understanding how, your communication style and how the dynamics of the office are impacted by this. Being able to manage your emotions to maintain professional and empathetic interactions is huge. And this is a lot of work for all of you who are practice owners, administrators, managers, because a lot of times you don't necessarily want to keep your cool because you've been under a lot of stress yourself. But I think this is an important part of this dynamic of the steps that you need to take. Introduction of the concept of confirming versus disconfirming communication climates, being able to, talk about description over evaluation, problem orientation, all of these things are different strategies that you can use to take, really heated, conversations, and basically change them and de-escalate them into something that is much more effective, right? Much more effective. And then the part that I think a lot of people in the medical dental setting have trouble with, which is the nonverbal communication side of things. Nonverbal cues, whether it's facial expressions or whatnot, absolutely can either reinforce the verbal communication, or right, it can go directly opposite the verbal communication, which then means that the employee won't trust what you're saying, right? If your face is saying one thing but your words are saying something different, that absolutely impacts how they receive that information, because they don't know what to trust, right? They don't know what to trust. And that is a big part, absolutely big part of this, like absolutely big part of this. So you got to be able to control that. Again, a big part, a lot of work, but something that you can do. All right, implementing strategies that create long-term and more importantly, immediate growth. Obviously, investing in resources is a big part of this. What we look at is that we look at the team as an asset, not just as an expense or a tool to get the job done. Every dental practice in the country needs good employees to get stuff done. I mean, that is the reality. There's no practice that is a solo doctor and no one else, right? No one else. So even if you have a small team of 2, 3 people, you still have a team. And so you have to invest in the right resources to help that asset, your team, thrive. And then, of course, there's technology assets that you can put into place that absolutely will help make sure that you are getting the most out of your team. We of course recommend HR for Health because it not only simplifies the HR tasks for you, but automates everything from the hiring process that we talked about to time clocks, which are tied now to benefits like PTO, vacation, sick leave. You want to automate all of those things. You get the performance reviews in there, which is incredible. And then we just launched in January something called the Scheduler, which allows you to schedule employees, from in a visual way. And so now you know where employees are scheduled. If somebody calls in sick, you can easily move somebody else into that role for that day. It's a real big game changer. And the secret behind it is that we created it, even though it looks like it's just a management tool, we created it with a compliance mindset. And so when you put your lunches and breaks and things in there, it absolutely protects the office from a legal perspective as well, which is really awesome, which is really cool. And so it's, using this technology, I think is huge. And then keeping up with the employment laws. As you guys know, since COVID, there's been a crazy amount of laws that have been passed when it comes to HR. Typically pre-COVID, it was always the states that we worried about, state law changing once a year, or whatnot, sometimes in the middle of the year, but definitely once a year, every January. Now what we have is the federal government has gotten into the game. So now the laws change not just in January, but they also change in July, and then sometimes, just like the FTC ruling, the Federal Trade Commission ruling that came out about a week and a half ago regarding non-competition rules, things are changing in the middle of the year, and the federal government's about to change the rules regarding overtime as well and make them uniform in many states or across the country. And so there are laws changing all the time, and you need like a master's in HR just to keep track of them. The nice thing about using HR for Health and the technology is that all the people with their degrees are on our payroll, and we can provide all that stuff to you. So again, hugely important to invest in these kinds of tools to be able to master a lot of not just the compliance side, but the management side as well. Now, if you guys, I know, we've been going through a lot of stuff, and it's been hard to maybe take notes. I know many of you are on your lunch break or whatnot, so we've made it easy. If you want to download the notes and the slides for today's presentation, just go ahead and scan this QR code, and then you'll get it immediately on your phone, and you can email it to yourself so that you have access to all of that. So feel free to do that now. You should see like a yellow box open up at the bottom of your phone. If you click that, it should pop up immediately. You don't have to put in any extra information or whatnot. If you guys have, I'll let that sort of stay there for a few more minutes. And then let me look while you guys do that to see if there are any questions. No questions yet. Okay, so I all right. So if you guys have any questions, that was all we had in terms of presentation today. Please let me know. And I see some people are raising their hand. Let's see how this works. I don't think I've ever seen that. Oh yeah. Perfect. Okay, yeah. Ask your question. Is there a different link? Heather, there's not a different link, but if you just put your email in the chat, I will have somebody email it to you. So, yeah, perfect. Anybody else have any questions? Yeah, feel free to email, and actually what I will do too, let me see if I can, is there, oh yeah, so there's an email on the screen as well. Okay, perfect. Thanks guys. I will make sure to get this to you. There's also an email at the bottom of this page if anybody else wants to you can email them and they'll send it to you. But I will for sure get this to you guys, and make sure you have it. I'm gonna just take a quick screenshot of that. Okay, perfect. All right, everyone, thank you very much for attending. And if you have any questions about any of this, let us know, of course. It's been a pleasure. Happy Monday. And then we'll talk soon. Take care. Bye.